Welcome back. If there were two shares you didn't want anything to do with this year, it was the former darlings of the excitable punter fraternity, ourselves included, Renergen and Transaction Capital. And it all began about this time last year with David Hurwitz at the time's inexplicable share sale. And yet, here we are.
The balance sheet restructure is substantially around reaching agreement with our current funders to kind of agree to continue to support this business through this challenging period. The restructure that's envisaged does not envisage any new funding coming in, but it's really about ensuring the support of the existing funders and allowing them to give the business time to kind of catch its breath and be able to bring the book under control, which is very much a function of the operators and how they...
When this happened in December last year, you guys were very mean to me when we spoke about the share sale.
Were we? Oh, we're sorry, Bright.
Yeah, well, now what?
Fortunately, I've never owned Transaction Capital.
Me neither. Although I did consider it at one point.
I have owned it in the past, but that's not the point. The point is...
The point is that we were wrong and you were right.
No. There was a moment.
Your time to say it now.
No. There was a moment in time where something sus happened, and you're like, no, but people sell all the time. I was like, yeah, sure.
Okay, not this time.
So right, because we were warning. The share price was going down, and people were still very optimistic about the stock, and there was something wrong. There's something wrong. If you go back to the chart round about that time, and I always warn investors, punters, whatever it is, have a look at the news and compare it with the direction of the chart. And this was a classic. We saw it in Steinhoff, we've seen it in EOH, and there were warning signs that things were wrong. So, Bright, you were right. You're dead right. If you go back, the signs were there a year ago. Yeah.
Well, speaking of the bad, palladium and platinum converged, and the result is that one Siboney stock will not cover your Thrive fee on easy equities. Anglo American has just been savaged by the market piranhas, and Glencore had got on the deal-making wagon, and hooray for Harmony and DRD Gold. David, sticking with you, it wasn't a year to be a platinum bull, but it was a good year to have a few gold coins in the bottom of your
chest of drawers.
Chest of drawers.
That was it, and like Michael Bublé and Maria Carey, the gold bulls, they start coming out at this time of the year, out of the cave and start singing their songs and praising gold and so on. But it never lasts. But Giulietta, the platinum story is bad. The platinum story is a worry. And I was quite shocked at the Anglo-American statement, which included Kumba. A lot had to do with South Africa. It's not looking good. And the fact that these are actual cutbacks. It's not just the fall in the price, is that companies are taking action to downsize their operations, which has ramifications for the economy. So I think it's quite a worrying story. And, while golds have held up, as you said, platinum shares have been absolutely slaughtered, and it's across the board. So Anglos includes, Anglo Plats. And of course, we mentioned Transnet earlier, another big story. We've got one more that we'll mention as soon as you've got some time.
And Bright, of course, you just missed all of this because you don't do rocks.
It's part of, staying out of the cyclical stuff, construction, minerals, mining, all that stuff. So sort of missed this one, and I'm happy to be out again. Also, if you go look at
Bright, did you buy a diamond for your now wife? Did you buy a diamond ring?
What's a diamond ring? I'm Zulu, man.
You bought her a cow.
What did you buy her? A Impala scarf? What did you buy her?
I don't want to get robbed. Stop talking about that stuff.
But I take your point. You want stuff that goes from bottom left to top right, not sort of goes sideways and...
Yeah, it's very... Because I'm not really good at calling the cycles. Yeah. So rather be...
You and everyone. No one's good at calling the cycles.
Invest in good businesses with, great fundamentals and solid, business cases and business models.
Boring stuff like that, and then it all goes up. South Africa has a habit of staring at its feet and blowing off both barrels while cleaning the family gun. But the bird flu that dripped through the poultry sector is more like an ostrich kick to the nuts that we don't really deserve, especially when you're Astral Foods and you're supplying your own water, your own power, and quite probably your own asphalt as well.
Well, there's a lot been said about bird flu. The epicenter was up here on the West Rand in the old Transvaal or Gauteng area. Now, the infection rate has come off, but for one reason only: there's hardly any birds left to be infected. So people say it's under control, and I see some of the government institutions claim they've got bird flu under control. But the stocking density of poultry on the West Rand was so high that when the bird flu swept in here, we lost all our birds. We lost 40% of our total breeding stock throughout the country.
Yeah, and just staggering numbers for a business. And I mean, Chris Gates has run that thing like an absolute star, but he just keeps on getting taken out at the knees.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand operational leverage. So in this case, you lose 40% of your breeding stock. Your profits don't go down by 40%. Yeah. They probably go down by 99% or 100%.
Well, I think 100. He went for a loss.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the unfortunate, things that the governments don't understand when it comes to running a business. And I don't want to blame the government for bird flu, but sure, man, they do make it very hard for these guys to operate. Think about the water crisis. Think about electricity crisis.
And there's no really state support for agriculture, for farmers in this country. Whereas, and so you're also competing against farmers in France or Germany or the US,
Portugal,
where state subsidies are gigantic. You've got to have absolute nerves of steel to be in that sector. David, you've never liked anything in the primary sector, so food producers,
soft commodities.
Yeah. It was a really tough year for them, wasn't it? David.
Yeah, chickens, sugar, you name it. Don't ever buy those. Until chickens can fly, leave them alone. And it's really a very, very difficult area. And you mention a very good point, because farmers normally fight against the weather. You'll have floods, you'll have hurricanes or something like that, and they get protection. No one thought that you wouldn't get water or you wouldn't get electricity. So it's very, very hard. And it's such an important segment of our economy, particularly from an employee point of view and also export point of view. So, yeah, I feel sorry for Astral.
Yeah.
I really, and they're a good business, well run, but just fighting the odds.
Yeah.
Well, this was also the year, as David said, that everyone got thin and Novo Nordisk got rich. So here's to a toned summer in size 0. I mean, it used to be that you would, smoke a whole bunch of cigarettes to keep your hunger cravings at bay. Now you just take a Zempic
Zepbound or
a Wegovy, Watsy. I mean, as you said, David, this was Novo Nordisk's year. That they were one of the stars of the stock exchange. Bright, give us your thoughts on Novo Nordisk and whether or not that trend is going to continue into 2024.
So, in terms of the trends of people wanting to look good, and look younger and beautiful and slim, they always say small is sexy or whatever that means. It's a trend. It's a trend that's here to stay. I mean, it precedes me as a human and probably David as well. So, from the youngest to the elder here in the house. I don't know. So they seem to have figured out the formula. But the only issue and maybe the only downside so far is that we don't have, these drugs go long enough to know what, the adverse effects, of taking this thing long term. Because what we know so far is that once you're in it, you can't stop. And I don't know, I'm using the US example here of $1,000 a month. It's not small money. I don't know how much it costs in South Africa, but it's going to be very, very hard. You need a highway exit here, an off ramp. Once you get your, to your desired
weight destination.
Exactly.
Yeah. But David, what about the long-term impact? Because I think it was an article in the FT that said, hang on, if all the Americans are on these weight loss drugs, which is essentially appetite suppressants, I mean, does that hit McDonald's? Does that boost Match.com because suddenly there's more people on Tinder? And this could, in theory, ripple all over the place.
Yeah, and don't discount that. And, people poo-poo it, they brush it aside. But you go to any young mother today and ask them if they give their kids Coca-Cola, and the answer is no. They give them water or whatever. They certainly don't give them soda pops or whatever it is, or any fizzy drinks. And look how fast that changed, and look how fast companies had to change. Look at McDonald's. You know, I've seen the latest McDonald's in South Africa. I haven't seen them here, but they've taken away, they're changing their whole image. They've taken away the M sign, you know, those arches. So they're changing, they're positioning themselves completely different. So do not discount the long-term implications of drugs like this. It'll take time, but it can be real.
Yeah,
so people do change their habits.
Yeah, I wanted to say the long-term effects I was thinking about mostly is for the person taking the drugs. I mean, there was an article in the FT, you like to read the FT, talking about, you know, the Wegovy face, or, you know, go look at that. People are looking, you know, they're aging. Face. Yeah, you're aging at an accelerated pace because you're on these pills. So I don't know.
I mean, I know Instagram face, but I've never heard of Wegovy face. But very quickly, let's just mention British American tobacco, because David, I know you want to talk about it. I mean, this in the last week we've had the write-down of basically what the Reynolds business, £25 billion just poof. Up, you know, like a Lucky Strike cigarette.
I've been a big fighter against this. You know, I've just said, why do you want to hold cigarette companies? And it's a big thing in South Africa. Oh, British American tobacco, great return, generates huge amounts of cash. But it's a dying industry. And the fact that they wrote this off, for me, is a big, big warning sign. You know, I don't know what's happened to the share price. I haven't kept up with it, but I believe it did take a bit of a knock. But these are signs, you know, of a deteriorating industry, of an industry that's shrinking. So, you know, when you write off Reynolds, when you write off a company that size, or you down, you know, you impair it to the extent they do, it's a warning sign.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, we've got to kind of reposition ourselves here. I don't know where in, because we ain't got no AIs, but anyway.
Even Warren Buffett stopped investing in cigarette butts in the, you know, the early 90s, so go figure.
Well, yeah, and then quickly, Sam Bankman-Fried, the man's in jail within a year. I mean, like, have you put anyone in jail this year who did a big crime?
For Steinhoff.
For anything. Steinhoff, Tongaat, corruption.
And recently someone, you know, mismanaged 100 million rands worth of funds that were supposed to go somewhere in a PE fund, and they never made it. Jesus, man.
People are eating.
We live in a very interesting country.
We certainly do. At least David's going to be enjoying. David, don't get into trouble in the US, okay? Because the justice system is swift and brutal.
Yeah, you'll be in jail before, like, New Year.
You have to behave yourself. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very well behaved at the moment.
David looking behaved.
Okay, well, that's where we leave it. Behave yourselves, everyone. Behave yourselves over the festive season, but have a little fun. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being with us this year. Bright, David, thanks for being part of the show. As always, have a good evening and a great weekend.